She's the ghost the military never admitted existed, until now. Sergeant Rhea Kael, code name Whisper 9, crawls through freezing canals, dismantles rogue commanders, and rewrites the rules of modern warfare. No one had eyes on her. That's what the SEAL team leader kept yelling into the comms, right before another crack split the dawn and dropped their point man in a wash of red outside the village of Sangale. They were pinned and blind. That's when my voice came through, flat and calm. Target down. Whisper 9 out. I knew what came next. Confusion, relief, and the stunned silence that always followed. They'd been trading whispers about Whisper 9 for months now. Ghost stories. A phantom sniper who showed up in the worst corners of Afghanistan, saved lives, and vanished like smoke. They never expected it was someone like me. And they sure as hell didn't expect it to be me again. I'm Sergeant Rhea Kael. Army, not Navy. 29 years old. Currently stationed at Fort Belmont, North Carolina. And yes, I'm the ghost you've been hearing about. The one they call Whisper 9. When the SEALs brought me in for the after-action report, I didn't speak much. Didn't need to. My actions had already answered their questions. Now, standing in the sterile white conference room at Joint Special Operations Command, I found myself facing a row of commanders who rarely listened to anyone outside their own ranks. Delta Force, Green Berets, Naval Special Warfare, all gathered here because of me. The man at the head of the table, General Stroud, flipped through my file like he was reviewing a test score. But his eyes told a different story. Respect mixed with disbelief. My file was heavy. 2 Bronze Stars with Valor, pending Silver Star upgrade. 6 years of operations most people would never hear about. But it didn't show the important parts. The stuff that lived in shadows. The kills that saved platoons. The missions that officially didn't exist. The name they gave me, Whisper 9, was born from the way I disappeared into terrain and water alike. Always unseen, always one step ahead. Stroud finally looked up. We have a problem, he said. 32 American engineers have been taken hostage by a rogue Special Forces commander in Kandahar. Exfil options are limited. He knows our tactics, our response times. Already neutralized 2 of our teams. I didn't need to ask his name. I knew the commander they were talking about, Farid Naziri. I trained beside him once, back when we still thought we were building something good. The general's voice dropped. We need a ghost, Sergeant. Not a rescue squad. Not an airstrike. Someone who gets in and gets it done. I stood straight. Then stopped looking. You already have her. He blinked. Some of the other officers shifted. A SEAL captain scoffed. The canals in that region are a death trap. Freezing by October. No cover. Minimal depth. You won't survive 2 hours submerged. Give me 4, I said. All I need. There was a pause. I watched them do the mental math. Exposure, hypothermia, current. I could see the doubt working through their heads. Until I added, I trained for this. I've done worse. I've already survived it. Stroud looked at me, almost skeptical. You think you can get in through the canals, bypass 20 guards, and eliminate a commander without setting off alarms? No, I replied. I know I can. I didn't wait for their approval. Just gave my conditions, my suppressed MSR rifle, a 2-person overwatch, and 12 hours prep. No hellos. No breach. No noise. Give me silence, I said. I'll give you the hostages. Stroud finally nodded. You've got 6 hours. As I stepped out onto the observation deck, the October wind bit at my collar. I didn't flinch. My mind was already calculating the canal flow, the guard rotations, the wind at dawn. My hand drifted to the patch stitched onto my jacket. A hawk, wings folded, perched on a rifle barrel. It was my grandfather's design. He taught me everything. From the Lakota grasslands to the kill zones of Syria, I'd become the river, just like he told me. Be the current, he said once. Be the thing they never see coming. I am. Whisper 9. And I was going home. Through water, through shadow, through silence. The ride to the forward outpost outside Kandahar was quiet. Just me, Master Sergeant Beck, and Specialist Mira Chun in the back of a modified M-Rapi. Beck was Delta, square-jawed, steady, the type of man who didn't waste breath unless the words could save lives. Chun was younger, Army intel, sharp-eyed and quiet. My support team. Handpicked. Trusted. They didn't ask many questions. They'd read enough. The compound we were targeting had once been a NATO logistics hub. Naziri had taken it over 2 weeks ago, reinforced it with captured drones and repurposed sentry tech. The canals wrapped around it like veins in a clenched fist. Narrow, choked with runoff and trash. But they were all I needed. By the time the sun dipped behind the Hellman Mountains, I had everything prepped. Thermal layers under a 5mm wetsuit, closed-circuit rebreather rig, waterproof casing for my rifle. Chun synced her drone feed to a secure tablet, whispering movements and tagging heat signatures. Beck monitored the exfil plan, watching for changes in wind or enemy patrols. At 1:40 hours, I slipped into the water. It hit me like a hammer, cold that steals breath and thought. But I was ready. I'd trained for this. Every breath through the rebreather was controlled, methodical. I let the current carry me forward. For 100 meters, submerged just enough to vanish. They had drones overhead, searchlights, sentries, but they never looked low enough. The canals shifted, 3 feet deep, then 5, then barely enough room to belly crawl through silt and muck. I welcomed it. The darker, the tighter, the better. My rifle stayed sealed tight until I reached the embankment 500 meters from the inner courtyard. From there, I crawled under a tangle of storm-washed debris, branches, wire, discarded plastic, and nested in. The perfect hide. I could see the northwest corner of the compound through a crack between sandbags. Thermal pings came through my bone-conducting earpiece. Myra's voice, soft and clipped, hostages located. Northern wing, lower level. Naziri just entered with 2 guards. They're bringing food. Good. That meant they were still alive. Then silence. Just wind, the low buzz of drones overhead, and my pulse slowing until it matched the earth. I waited. Hours passed. I studied their patterns. Guards pacing in shifts. 1 every 37 seconds along the south wall. 2 overlapping fields of fire near the entry arch. A sniper nest, poorly hidden, on the east tower. He'd be my first shot if this went hot. At 4:18, Naziri stepped into the courtyard again. He walked like he always did, shoulders high, lips half smiling like he still believed he was the smartest man in the room. Only this time, the room was mine. Beck's voice crackled through the comms. Eagle team inbound. 5 minutes out. Not yet. Then Naziri raised a camera. A hostage was dragged into view. American contractor, maybe 40s, bruised and bleeding. Naziri began speaking into the lens. A rehearsed propaganda piece. I breathed in. Calculated wind. Range, 421 meters. Slight right crosswind. My barrel rose out of the water, barely disturbing the surface. I lined up the shot. A single whisper. Crack. Naziri dropped mid-sentence. His skull split open like a melon. The camera tumbled. His guards froze. Second shot. Camera operator, center mass. Third. Guard. Dropped before his weapon fully cleared its holster. The compound erupted. Guards ran toward the courtyard, screaming, firing into the dark. Some aimed at the canal. Rounds smacked the water and fizzled harmlessly. I moved, slid 30 meters downstream through the muck, re-emerged under another bank. 2 more shots. 2 more down. Inside the northern wing, lights flickered. 1 guard opened fire into the room with hostages. Window. Basement level. West end, Myra's voice hissed. I adjusted, found the gap, and pulled the trigger. The round slipped through steel bars, straight into his chest. Seconds later, I saw flashbangs go off, Beck and Eagle team breaching. Gunfire. Screams. Then silence. I stayed low, scopes sweeping the perimeter, making sure no runners doubled back. No one did. I had already taken 12 before their boots touched ground. By the time I made it to the extraction point, Beck was already waiting, eyes wide despite the calm. You good? He asked. I nodded, though my body trembled violently from cold. Core temp. 91, Mira replied, checking the scanner. We need to warm you now. But my hands were steady. They got me into the med tent as dawn broke over the mountains. Beck and Mira worked fast. Heated blankets. For with warm saline. I gritted through it. No shaking. No signs of distress. Not that kind. You ever hear of someone sniping from a frozen irrigation trench for 4 hours and walking away? Mira whispered to Beck as they checked my vitals. She didn't just walk away, Beck replied. She dismantled an entire chain of command. I didn't say anything. Just closed my eyes and let the warmth creep back in. It wasn't the cold that bit the hardest. It was the silence afterward. The kind that comes when the adrenaline fades and you're left with the ghosts. I'd seen too many. The medics wanted to fly me out immediately, but I declined. I wasn't finished. Not until I saw the faces of every hostage safe, accounted for, breathing. They lined them up in the courtyard of the FOB. 32 dazed men and women, bundled in scratchy blankets, heads low, eyes flicking toward every shadow. Survivors, but only just. One man, mid-50s, engineer by the look of him, grabbed my hand as I passed. You were in the water. We heard the shots. Saw the muzzle flash just once. I nodded once. His eyes filled. You saved my daughter too. She's the reason I took this contract. To help fund her school. I didn't know what to say to that. I never do. Instead, I handed him my ration bar. Make sure she eats that before you leave. It's better than whatever they'll serve you on the evac bird. He choked a laugh. You sure you're not a ghost? I just gave him a faint smile. I get that a lot. An hour later, General Stroud arrived with a convoy and a dozen men wearing suits that didn't belong anywhere near a war zone. Langley types. Pentagon eyes. Whatever. They'd read the reports, run their simulations. But none of that mattered. Stroud walked straight toward me. His face looked like stone had been carved into something human. You broke protocol, he said without preamble. I raised an eyebrow. Which one? He ignored the jab. You also neutralized a rogue commander, confirmed the hostage location, initiated tactical overwatch, and provided sniper support for the breach. All while submerged and alone. I shrugged slightly. I had support. Beck and Chin did their part. He nodded once, then handed me a sealed folder. This is yours. Your service recommendation. We're pushing it through for the Distinguished Service Cross. I didn't reach for it. I don't do this for the medals, sir. His mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, not quite a grimace. I know. But you need to understand something, Sergeant Kael. What you did, it wasn't just about taking a shot. You reshaped the playbook. Behind him, a SEAL commander stood silently. Tall, sunburned face, arms folded. I recognized him, Captain Ryland. He'd lost a team to Naziri's ambush 3 weeks ago. He approached slowly. No bluster. No bravado. My brother was in that compound, he said, voice thick. He came home because of you. I met his gaze. Then I did my job. He nodded, pulled something from his pocket. A patch, SEAL Team 5's unit insignia, edges frayed. They're putting your name up in the team house, he said, offering the patch. We don't do that for outsiders. I hesitated. Took it carefully. I'm honored. Later, back at Fort Belmont, the ceremony was quiet. Not public. Just a room with 15 men and women, Special Forces, Delta, SEALs, Rangers, most of whom had once looked through me like I was furniture. Now they stood when I entered. Stroud pinned the silver star to my uniform himself. Beck said they were fast-tracking the Distinguished. Mira told me to expect a full briefing with SOCOM next month. But none of that mattered to me. What mattered was the message that came through my encrypted phone as the meeting ended. Signal received. Safe passage confirmed. The river doesn't forget. It was from an old contact. Someone who knew about the ops I never talk about. It told me something I already understood deep in my marrow. This wasn't the end. Whisper 9 still had work to do. Back home at Fort Belmont, everything felt too still. Too clean. There's something about the absence of gunfire that makes the quiet unbearable. I returned to my old quarters, Spartan, just the way I left them. A single photo sat on the desk. My grandfather and me, taken the day I enlisted. He was already hunched with age, but his eyes still burned like flint catching dry grass. He used to say, some people think war is noise, but the most dangerous kind is silent. He would have understood this mission. The next morning, I was summoned to the range. Apparently, someone in Naval Special Warfare wanted to see how I moved in water. Show us how you became a ghost, they'd said. It wasn't a request. They'd cleared a portion of the underwater combat course normally reserved for SEAL selection. Cold, fast-moving water. Obstacle rigged. Minimal visibility. I suited up, slid into the river trench, and didn't look back. Mira was on the shoreline with the instructors, most of them watching with arms crossed and expressions that said prove it. I didn't mind. I prefer skeptics. They listen better once you've silenced them with results. 30 minutes later, I surfaced without a ripple for 100 meters downstream. I had marked every mock sentry, avoided every trip line, and returned with all 4 mock payloads undetected. When I emerged, Mira was smirking. One of the instructors shook his head. That's not even swimming. That's gliding. She's not a swimmer, Mira said. She's a current. That afternoon, I received a folded note through secure courier. No digital trace. No signature. Just a single line handwritten in rough block letters. Lungur team requests eyes in Narrak Valley. Interference confirmed. Possible turncoat. You in? Lungur team. I hadn't heard that name in years. A special recon unit deep in East Africa, officially disbanded. Unofficially, they still moved in the shadows. I didn't answer with words. Just sent back a single handwritten reply. If there's a shadow, I'll find the source. That night, I sat by the old river behind the sniper school compound. My boots rested on the stone path where instructors used to walk during early training drills. One of the younger soldiers, Private Hall, came and sat nearby, hesitant. I heard you were back, he said. They talk about you like you're a ghost. I offered. He chuckled nervously. Yeah, something like that. You believe in ghosts. I do now. We sat in silence for a while. Then he asked, how do you do it? Stay calm in the worst places? I thought for a long moment. Because I've already been to the worst place, I said quietly. And I walked out. He didn't ask what that place was. Smart kid. I watched the water ripple under the moonlight. My hands traced a small pendant hidden under my undershirt, twine and carved bone, a keepsake from home. My grandfather's final gift before he passed. Be the river, he'd said. It doesn't fight. It shapes everything. The next morning, I packed light. Just one rifle. Hand-loaded rounds. My wet gear. No ceremony. Mira met me at the helipad. East Africa's not going to know what hit it. I'm not there to hit anything, I replied. I'm there to see what they don't want me to see. She handed me a tablet with encrypted coordinates. Lungur team will make contact if it goes hot. Otherwise, you're in the wind. As I climbed aboard the transport, Mira called out. Hey, Kael. I turned. Why do they call you Whisper 9? I gave her a tight smile. Because by the time they hear me, I'm already gone. Then the rotors lifted, and I faded back into the clouds. Narrak Valley didn't exist on most maps. The ones that did mark it only showed green ridges, low hills, and the occasional path worn down by foot traffic and forgotten wars. But I knew better. Lungur team's last ping had come from a plateau near the valley's eastern mouth. Final message read, movement inside the ridge. Not local militia. Patterns too clean. Watching us before we arrived. Then nothing. Total radio silence for 4 days. The agency had written them off. I hadn't. I landed after midnight at a safe house built into the base of a bluff. No signs. No names. Just an old man who handed me a key and a thermos of bitter tea. He never asked my name. I didn't offer it. At 3 o'clock, I slipped out in camo and rebreather gear. The gorge below was marked as dry, but a shallow runoff still flowed through, enough to work with. I moved fast but low. Always in the water when possible, always beneath line of sight. Moonlight was my enemy, the overgrowth, my armor. I found Lungur's hide 90 minutes later. Empty, but not looted. No blood, no bodies, just absence. That was worse. They'd left behind a fire kit, still warm. Clay over the embers to hide the heat. Their camo netting had been carefully coiled and reburied. Professionals. No panic in their exit. Whoever had taken them, or whatever had forced them to vanish, knew the game. I crouched and listened. At first, there was nothing. Then a hum. High frequency, faint. A drone, maybe? I adjusted my scope, checked thermal through the brush. There it was. High-tech. Tri-rotor. Not African militia gear. This was Western-built, covert ops level. Silent hover. Real-time infrared sweep. I let it pass. Another 500 meters, and I found what I was looking for. An artificial ridge outcropping that hadn't existed in Lungur's last terrain file. Too smooth. Too symmetrical. They were building something here. Underground. Which meant Lungur had seen too much. I waited until night's end, then circled north. Found a trench system half-dug, camouflaged by brush and debris. Not meant for troops. Meant for surveillance. Motion sensors, acoustic triggers, even biometric feedback netting. But they'd missed one thing. They didn't bury the wiring deep enough. And in the jungle, roots grow fast. One tug. One snip. System failure in Quadrant 3. A single 5-second breach. Just long enough for me to slide in, belly low. Inside the compound, things got strange. I found Lungur's tracker tags, stripped and disabled, placed in a row on a flat rock, like someone wanted me to find them. Or maybe it was a warning. My comms buzzed low. Myra's voice, sharp and urgent. Kael, we just got a partial intercept. Female voice. Says she saw someone watching from the water. Said you're being hunted. I froze. Not because I was afraid, but because I already knew. I wasn't alone. The shot came 2 seconds later. It missed, barely. Chipped bark off a tree 2 feet left of my head. I dropped flat, breath slowed, pulse steady. Rolled downslope, toward the river, and vanished into the silt. They'd seen me, which meant they were good. But I was better. You want to hunt Whisper 9? Then you'd better know how to become part of the river yourself. They didn't. I waited. Drifted downstream, 20 yards. Took up position behind a rock ledge. And listened. 2 men. One with a suppressed SMG, the other with a scoped DMR. Whispering in a language I hadn't heard in years. Russian, mixed with something Balkan. Mercs. No insignia. No comms. Working silent and untraceable. But they didn't know the land like I did. Didn't know the currents. The terrain. The way sound moves when water meets stone. They were confident. That was their mistake. I waited until the DMR moved into my blind spot. Then came up behind him like mist rising from the river. Knife under the ribs. Silent. Fast. His partner turned. Too slow. My round hit center mass. Suppressed. One twitch. Then quiet again. The jungle swallowed the sound. I checked their gear. No dog tags. Custom gear. Scrub cereals. But their mission was clear. They weren't here for Lungur. They were here for me. Which meant someone knew I'd come. I moved quickly after that. 2 dead mercs meant one thing. Someone wanted this buried. And Lungur had either uncovered something massive or had become leverage. I dragged both bodies into the runoff channel, weighed them with stone, and let the current take them. Not out of kindness. Out of necessity. Leave no trace. That's the first rule in long shadow work. I slipped deeper into the valley's inner shelf. Steep walls. Water thick with sediment. Heat rising now. The kind that made scopes drift and optics lie. Lungur had to be close. I found the signs at 0600. Boot scuffs in dry silt. A shattered ration tin, half buried. Burn marks in the mud from a quick flare signal, one that hadn't lit. They tried to signal help, but someone got there first. Mira buzzed into my earpiece again. Kael, ISR satellites caught a brief lens flare last night. Looked like sunlight off optics. Same ridgeline you're in. Could be yours. It wasn't, I said. I was under full canopy. Then Myra's voice dropped. We cross-referenced heat signatures. Got something under the northeast cliff wall. Artificial cooling vent. Hidden structure. I was already moving. By 0630, I'd found the intake. Small, camouflaged with moss and fake stone mesh. Quiet hum of machinery underneath. The kind you use when hiding a black site in foreign soil. Not militia. Not even rogue. This was military grade. Possibly NATO-born. Lungur had walked into a secret no one wanted public. I worked fast, wiring a microcam inside the vent shaft, then patched the signal back to Mira. On her end, she pulled up grainy visuals, hallways, lights, movement. One figure, shackled, sitting against a wall. Lungur's sergeant, Diane Kepler. She was alive. That's all I needed. I crept back, tracked a narrow tunnel running parallel to the cliff face, and found an access point hidden behind what looked like a collapsed boulder. Classic concealment. But the humidity had loosened the clay seal. One push. It opened like a rotted tooth. Inside, the air was cooler. Chemical. I moved slowly. Floor silent beneath my boots. Each step measured. I cleared the first chamber. Empty. Maps and comms gear, all stripped. Someone was moving fast, packing up, getting ready to ghost this place. Too late. A voice behind me froze the marrow in my bones. Didn't think they'd send you. I turned slowly. A man stood in the archway. Taller than I remembered. Beard gone gray. Tactical gear stripped of any rank or patches. And yet I knew that voice. Major Ethan Wren. My former CO, presumed Kia 3 years ago during the operation that buried most of Whisper's origin team. He wasn't dead. He was running the site. I leveled my rifle, steady. Lungur. Where are they? Alive, he said. For now. My finger hovered near the trigger. You're not here by accident, I said coldly. You knew I'd come. He gave a small, tired smile. Of course I did. You're the only one who still believes in the code. I kept my sights trained on his chest. He didn't flinch. They're going to erase this place, Kael. You. Me. Everyone in this valley. Drone strike's been authorized. 40 minutes. You could have pulled Lungur out. I did, he said. That's when I heard the footstep behind me. Turned. Lungur's team. Sergeant Kepler. Sergeant Anand. 3 others. Dirty, exhausted, but moving. Weapons up. Not on me. On Ren. We found your little server room, Kepler growled. Saw what you were planning to sell. Ren's eyes flicked to me. They think I'm the villain, Kael. You are, I said. You were supposed to die a soldier. Instead, you became a businessman. You don't understand. No, I snapped. You don't. You think this world runs on secrets. But I don't care about secrets. I took one step closer. I care about the people who don't get to walk out if you keep running it this way. Ren raised his hand slowly. I trained you better than this. You did, I said. And now I'm going to finish what you started. Then the shots came, not from me, not from Lungur. From the jungle outside. Ren turned, startled. They're early. The drone strike was no longer theoretical. We had minutes to get out. We ran. There wasn't time for questions. Not about Ren's betrayal. Not about who'd pulled the drone strike authorization early. All that mattered was the sky. Lungur team peeled off in pairs, flanking the jungle route that I'd mapped earlier. Kepler stuck to my 6, silent and sharp. Even half-starved and battered, she moved like she'd been waiting for this moment. Ren followed, hands zip-tied behind his back. He didn't argue, didn't plead. Maybe part of him knew this was always how it would end. Overhead, I heard it. A low thunder that wasn't natural. The kind that comes with reapers circling, watching. A drone's hum barely audible in the canopy wind. And that meant one thing. The countdown had started. Strike window closes in 3 minutes. Myra's voice whispered through my comms. Kael, you need to be 2 clicks clear. Evac point is. I know, I cut in. We're moving. I led them through a ravine that curved west, a gash in the earth filled with tangled vines and runoff. The walls narrowed fast, but I'd chosen this route for a reason. Water always leaves a path, even through stone, and I had walked enough rivers to know where they led. Explosions cracked behind us. The first payload, a kinetic bunker buster, hit the cliffside with a shockwave that shoved dust and stone like ocean surf. Keep moving, I shouted. Kepler hauled Ren up as he stumbled, then shoved him forward. Another blast tore the earth. The black site was vanishing in fire and rubble. My mind registered it clinically. No recovery. No evidence. They wanted it erased. Every file, every whisper, every ghost. Good. By the time we reached the second ridge, smoke rolled through the tree line like a sandstorm. Myra's evac drone appeared just ahead, hovering low with twin rotor lift and a sling net big enough for 6. Load in. Go, go. I barked. Ren hesitated, then turned to me, eyes hollow. You don't even know what you destroyed. You're right, I said flatly. And I don't care. Kepler shoved him into the net. Lungur followed. One of them was limping, Anand, I think, but they were alive. When the last one was in, I hooked the net to the drop cable and slapped the lift signal. The drone rose fast, disappearing into the clouds, silent as a hawk. And then I was alone again. Just the smoke. The river. The memory of betrayal still echoing in my chest. I didn't move. Not yet. Not until the final wave of strikes rolled through. Thermal blasts, fuel-air ordnance, fire that scrubbed everything down to bedrock. I watched the jungle die. Watched a piece of the world I knew vanish. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to be certain it wouldn't come back. Only once the wind shifted, carrying clean air again, did I slip into the last feeder stream and let the current carry me west. Silent. Invisible. By dawn, I emerged in a village 30 kilometers away. Changed into local clothes I'd stashed earlier. Slung my rifle in a false-bottom satchel. Walked straight into a tea house and sat down like any other traveler. The world kept turning, but something inside had shifted. That night, I made my way to the satellite comms relay. Opened the secure line. Sent a message to Mira. Target neutralized. Lungur extracted. No survivors left behind. Then I hesitated before sending one more line. Ren's final words were wrong. I know exactly what I destroyed. And I did. Because the ghost wasn't just the mission anymore. It was what I'd become. 2 weeks passed before I saw Fort Belmont again. By then, Lungur team had been debriefed, dispersed, and scrubbed from all active records. Even Kepler had disappeared into the long silence of black assignments. Ren? He didn't make it past the first drone corridor. Mira confirmed it. His harness tore loose midair. No recovery. The official report cited severe turbulence. I didn't lose sleep. When I stepped into the command building, the air smelled like bleach and coffee. Familiar. Sterile. Forgettable. But as soon as I walked past the checkpoint, the look started. Not fear. Not even awe. Something quieter. Respect. The kind you don't ask for. The kind earned only when you crawl through hell and bring others back alive. General Stroud summoned me without ceremony. Just a knock on my quarters and a single word. Now. I walked into the same white-walled conference room I'd stood in months before. The men inside were the same, Delta, SEALs, Rangers. But this time, no one doubted why I was there. Stroud spoke first. Lungur team submitted their joint report. It corroborates everything. No leaks. No press. No internal conflict. He held up a black folder with no markings. Unofficial commendation. Plus an extension on your operations budget. A generous one. I didn't reach for it. You burned a ghost site, he continued. Intercepted a possible defection. Prevented data from reaching rogue states. He paused. And still brought your people home. I just nodded. What do you want, Sergeant Kael? He asked finally. My answer was ready. Training command. I want to build a course. Advanced field concealment, riverborne movement, long-sustained overwatch. Based on what I've done. What works? You want to teach? One SEAL commander asked. I want them to survive, I corrected. And to stop thinking ghosts are myths. Stroud nodded. Approved. The meeting ended without salutes or applause. That's not how shadow people operate. But as I left, I felt the shift again. This time, it wasn't in me. It was in them. They believed now. 2 months later, the new field course opened. Unmarked on official schedules. No brochures. Just a whisper in the pipeline. If you want to learn how not to die in water, go find Whisper 9. My students came from every branch. Special operations. Recon. Sniper teams. Even drone pilots who wanted to understand what they were trying to see from above. We trained in the coldest parts of the Appalachian runoff channels. I made them crawl through currents blindfolded. Hold breath under pressure. Count rotations of rotating sentries by vibration alone. Some puked. Some broke. But the ones who finished? They didn't talk about the course. Ever. The river taught them well. And it taught me something too. For years, I believed I could only matter in the shadows. But maybe the real legacy wasn't in what I destroyed. It was in what I left behind. One evening, as the sun dipped below the tree line, Mira arrived unannounced. She didn't salute. Just sat beside me near the stream running behind the compound. We said nothing for a long time. Then she handed me a small envelope. Inside was a photograph. Lungur team, 5 operators standing together again, arms crossed, grinning like they'd cheated death. They wanted you to have this, Mira said. I studied their faces. Smiles, bruises, worn eyes. But alive. Any regrets? She asked quietly. I shook my head. Only that I didn't burn more places like that sooner. She chuckled. Still think you're a ghost? No, I said. Ghosts are trapped. I'm still moving. I dropped the photo in my pocket, watched the stream ripple, and thought of my grandfather's words again. Be the river, child. The water remembers. But it forgives too. Winter came early to the Dakotas. The winds rolled across the plains like they had something to prove. I stood on the edge of the reservation, boots crunching over frosted earth, watching my nephew try to balance a rifle half his size. He grunted. It's too heavy, Aunt Rhea. You'll grow into it, I said, smiling. Or it'll grow into you. He frowned. I remembered that frown. It was the same one I wore at his age when Grandpa handed me a weapon and said, "This is not for violence. It's for responsibility." We'd set up targets along the tree line. Simple stuff. Tin cans, glass bottles, a strip of cloth fluttering like a flag at 400 meters. He missed the first 6 shots, then started listening. Feel the wind with your skin, I told him. Don't just look, sense it. The ground will tell you more than the scope. He adjusted, took a breath, and the 7th shot pinged. Dead center. He beamed. I let him celebrate for 10 seconds. Then said, do it again. By sundown, he'd hit every target. And I could see it in his eyes, recognition. Not just of skill, but of something deeper. Legacy. Discipline. Stillness. That night, We sat by the fire pit behind the house. My sister served bison stew, like she always did after I came home. She didn't ask about missions anymore. She knew better. Instead, she handed me an envelope. You got mail. Inside was a thick, printed letter. Official government stationery. I knew the seal before I read it. Department of Defense. I unfolded it slowly. A commendation. Another medal I didn't want. But beneath that, a request. Staff Sergeant Kael, the department requests your attendance at the Joint Advanced Tactics Symposium to lecture on asymmetric infiltration. Your experience and leadership are considered mission-critical to our evolving doctrine. I set it down. My sister sipped her tea. They finally figured out you know what you're doing. I laughed softly. Took them long enough. My nephew leaned close. Will they make you a general or something? I ruffled his hair. Ghosts don't wear stars, kid. He tilted his head. Are you still a ghost? That question stuck with me long after he went to bed. Later, I walked alone under the stars, the prairie quiet except for the wind combing through the grass. The same wind I used to watch with Grandpa. I sat on the old flat rock by the edge of the river, the same river he used to say had its own memory. I pulled the carved bone pendant from under my jacket, ran my thumb across the grooves, remembered the lives saved, the ones lost, the choices made, and I realized something. I wasn't a ghost anymore. I was a current. I didn't disappear. I reshaped everything I touched, and I would keep doing so, quietly, relentlessly, for as long as they let me. The symposium was held at Fort Ascendant, a place where doctrine met decision-makers. Generals, analysts, commanders, all seated in tiered rows like some tribunal of war. Most had never been within 100 clicks of a live firefight. Fewer had ever felt the weight of wet gear clinging to their skin at 3 a.m., heartbeats slowed to match the rhythm of incoming danger. I stepped to the podium. No slides, no bullet points, just my voice. I'm not here to talk about kills, I began, or medals, or classified stats you've already read in some filtered report. A pause. I'm here to talk about the human current. The people who vanish into shadows and crawl through mud not because they enjoy it, but because they believe someone has to. A screen lit behind me. A grainy image, Lungur team, post-exfil, bruised, and alive. 5 of them would be dead if we'd followed the book, I said. They lived because I didn't. That got their attention. I walked them through it. Not the operation, but the mindset. The silence. The cold. The sheer will it takes to hold steady while death walks inches from your position. When I finished, no one applauded. But no one spoke either. And that silence? That was the best approval I could ask for. Afterward, a general approached me. 3 stars. Polished boots. He said, we want to build a new doctrine around this. Make it a cornerstone. We'd like you to lead it. I looked him dead in the eye. Only if I get to choose who learns it. This kind of training breaks people. I won't put anyone through it unless they ask for it. He nodded slowly. Fair. Later that week, back at Fort Belmont, Mira found me by the water's edge again. She tossed me a small package, wrapped in cloth, hand-stitched with the sigil of Lungur team. Inside was a compass. Old. Brass. Worn smooth by time. Attached was a note. Wherever you go, you always know the way back. I didn't cry. That's not how I grieve. But I held the compass for a long time. That night, I updated the course syllabus. Added a new module, directional drift recovery, applied through waterborne terrain. Some of the instructors didn't get it. Didn't matter. The ones who were meant to learn it would. Weeks later, a new recruit joined the class. Fresh face. Sharp eyes. Native like me. Quiet, but alert. After our first river exercise, he pulled me aside. My grandfather used to say rivers carry stories, he said. But they only share them with those who listen. I smiled. He was right. He hesitated. Do you think the river remembers us? I looked out at the flowing water, dusk painting the world in soft gold. It does, I said quietly. But only the ones who leave something worth remembering. As he walked off, I glanced down at the water's surface. And for a moment, just a flicker, I saw him, my grandfather, standing on the far bank, rifle slung, gaze steady. Then he was gone. But the feeling lingered. I wasn't just a whisper anymore. I was the current. And the river would carry my story forward, long after my boots left its banks. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.